Great. Hello, everybody. I assume you can see that. Welcome. As Julius said in her introduction, I'm an entrepreneur who is now very focused on commercializing spinouts from academia. I teach at BU and I run the Mass Tech Transfer Center. And we have launched a platform called MassVX. And we called it Beyond Mentoring. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the platform and how it connects academic spinouts with entrepreneurial champions across Massachusetts. So our mission at Mass Tech Transfer Center is to enable and celebrate Massachusetts to lead the nation in translating basic research to the market. And we all know that we have these amazing academic institutions that cover. One second, why is this not going forward? Here we go. That are throughout the Commonwealth and are both a combination of private and public institutions that receive close to $7 billion a year in research funding. This is a bit of an eye chart, but it gives you an idea of the input function that's driving the potential commercialization of research. So we're getting $7 billion in research funding, primarily from the federal government coming into our institutions. Some of that results in inventions, patents, and some of those result in spinouts. So you can see here we're doing about 100 spinouts a year from our 34 institutions. One other thing that our institutions are fantastic at is raising philanthropy for translation. So the Broad Institute or the Weiss Institute, we're brilliant at raising money. I saw somebody raise their hand. Let's hold Q&A till the end of my presentation. We'll have a good 10 minutes to do that. So our goal here with MassVX is to increase the success and volume of academic spinouts from all 34 academic research institutions. And we do this by efficiently sort of matching these academic and potential academic spinouts with the right entrepreneurial champion. In other words, taking that academic entrepreneur and matching them with a business entrepreneur, because a combination, if it's done well, has a much higher success rate because it attracts resources and funding and the right kind of teams. So there are many institutions out there that are doing a similar sort of work, particularly around mentoring. So the Mass Connect program, many of you are aware of with Mass Bio, I-Core, Mass Challenge, Techstars. Harvard's got the Biotech Club, Harvard, MIT have the Biotech Club. So these, we think, are all complementary to what we're doing because we fill the gap between the mentoring work that all these organizations are doing and the launch of a company with resources such as funding. So this fills the gap of getting the right entrepreneurial champion onto this academic startup. So how does it work? We're basically sourcing potential academic spinouts from all 34 institutions in combinations, with the tech transfer offices, as well as, other, institutions, whether it's I-Core or Venture Mentoring Service or the Mass Connect or all the other ones I showed in the previous slide. And then we have a stable of about 450 entrepreneurial champions who are in sort of various stages in various fields. And we do a discovery process to find the right connections, or collisions as we call them. And then we built a process for the two sides to get together, build trust, and hopefully form a match. So, our goal, as I've said before, is really unique. I mean, there really is nobody doing something like MassVX anywhere in the country, frankly, at the scale we're trying to do it. And we have, as I said, already sort of launched. We launched last summer. We've got over 20 active projects. We've already made a handful of matches, and our goal is to continue to grow this. So I think what's particularly interesting to the attendees of this webinar will be, what kind of projects are we, trying to present. And these are coming out of many prolific labs in our academic institutions, such as the Langer Lab, such as the Church Lab, such as the Walt Lab, such as the Bhatia Lab, the CARP Lab, and others. And they're coming from institutions out in other parts of the state, such as WPI, UMass Medical, UMass Amherst, UMass Lowell, Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, and these are ones that are not, immediately in Cambridge and Boston. So we've got a really good pipeline of these projects. We only pick those that we feel could potentially be an academic spin-out. So they've already, secured some proof of concept funding. They actually want an entrepreneurial champion. I think that's an important criteria. Of course, they've already secured IP, have got a go-to-market strategy, got a committed PI who understands that they're probably not going to be spinning out with the company, but staying with the academic institution. And lastly, that there are some signals to market need. On the other side of entrepreneurial champions, we're always looking for new people to add to the stable. And again, these are, people who have some experience with academic spinouts, have been successful in securing funding or being parts of teams that have, and and are interested in taking on an academic spinout. One of the things that we borrowed from the engine, and we feel very strongly about, that that the academic entrepreneur, or if there is somebody spinning out from the academic side who could be the CTO or the CSO, that person is equally valuable to the entrepreneurial champion who potentially could be the CEO. That in the beginning, in the formation of these academic spinouts, it's extremely important that both the science and the business be equally valued. And that's something that we like to emphasize when we bring the two sides together to get to a match. So, this is sort of the goal of how we do it. We've actually formed a advisory committee that's helping us figure out the process, as well as helping us out, as we, think about matches. And that advisory committee is, made up of a number of academic entrepreneurs, as well as entrepreneurial champions. The process that we've put together is also something that's pretty unique, that nobody's done. We've come up with this sort of 4-step process for the two sides to build trust and get to know each other. We've also built a kit of information, such as, what equity splits should be like, what a founder's agreement should look like, what the different roles could be and titles and what those actually mean, and what equity arrangements on a license from the academic institution could look like. So a bunch of things that are common for every one of these academic spinouts, but sometimes are hard to find in today's environment because this information, tends to be opaque and proprietary. So that kind of ends my presentation, and I'm happy now to take some moderated Q&A. We've left plenty of time. I think we've got 15 minutes for Q&A. I'm going to stop sharing. So,
Hi, Vineet, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Sean.
Okay, so we got one question from Stephen Brand so far, and he wants to know, do you help them navigate the IP issues that sometimes get in the way for those coming out of universities?
Stephen, we will absolutely help. All 34 tech transfer offices at these institutions are affiliated with us at Mass Tech Transfer Center. We have, a pretty good idea, and most of them do as well, of what kind of, standard practices are. And we would be more than willing to provide any of those standard practices to both sides, frankly. And as I had mentioned earlier, we, as part of the kit, we even have some, published data on what, for example, equity arrangements could be with academic institutions. I think we've got a question from Tina. No. Barb's raised her hand.
Hey, Vineet, can you provide us with links that would help us get to some of these resources?
Yeah, I will provide them to the organizers here, and we'll send them out to you. But to be frank, our website, which is at mttc.org, is not the most user-friendly at the moment. We are in the process of hiring a marketing firm and going through some rebranding and doing the website. But you're certainly welcome to go there. If you can't find it, I will also provide the links to the organizers. I think that was another question from Michael. I think I answered that. So you said you're only looking for projects that already have initial funding. If you're looking at something without funding, how far along should an MVP/idea be? So, our criteria are pretty straightforward, Mike. When I say funding, we're looking for proof of concept funding, not for equity or dilutive funding. So this would be non-dilutive funding that have taken into account that there is some market viability. So we want some signal towards market viability. A pure science or technology is something that we think is premature to connect to an entrepreneurial champion. When, most things that are spinning out of academia have received basic research funding, but we would want them to also get some proof of concept funding, either translational funding, from like, the WES, or every university's got some translational funding, or SBIR funding, or, funding from a disease foundation. But those sort of proof of concept funding. Hope that answers your question. Then Mike Falter, sorry, missed the early part of your presentation. What universities are you working with? We are working, Mike, with every one of the 34 research institutions in Massachusetts. And we also are working with institutions in the neighboring states like Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Maine, and Vermont. Let's see here. What are some of the best ways to engage angel investors with tech transfer office? Not exactly sure what that question means, unless this is an angel investor who's interested in investing in academic spinouts. Certainly, you know, tech transfer offices are very straightforward and easy to get in touch with, but we can also help if you're interested in investing in any academic spinouts. Oh, I think Kevin's question is funny. Any other questions out there? So while people are noodling on that, I would encourage any of the entrepreneurs on the call who may not have done an academic spin out, but you know, are entrepreneurs who've done other spin outs, to also reach out. And you know, I'm not sure if my contact information was left here, but it's really easy. It's Vineet, V-I-N-I-T, @ and my last name, Nijawan, Nijahawan.com. We'd love to introduce you into projects coming out of academia. And, you know, we are always trying to expand our pool of entrepreneurial champions. As I said, there are about 100 academic spinouts a year, and these are just ones that are coming, you know, out with IP that's being licensed. This is not counting all the student startups and things coming out of academia. So if any of you have any interest in those kind of projects and looking at them, please do send me a note. We have a few more minutes. I will wait to hear for more questions.
Hey, Sean, do we have any questions in Facebook or YouTube?
Let's see, I see one more question. You may have touched on this earlier, Vineet. Do entrepreneurs need to get an IP lawyer before negotiating with tech transfer?
No, I don't think entrepreneurs need to get an IP lawyer because, you know, the university already is engaged with an IP lawyer when they file their patent. And most likely when you license that patent, you will probably continue with that same IP lawyer. If, you know, if somebody feels strongly that that another IP lawyer would be more appropriate for that technology than the one that the university has used, you know, the universities will usually be willing to transfer, you know, their IP to a new lawyer, as long as, you know, the company was taking care of all the financial issues related to the new IP lawyer. But also remember that you're licensing the IP from the university. In all federally funded research projects that result in IP, the IP has to stay with the university. So the ownership of the IP will stay with the university. You will just license it. We haven't listed the projects online. That was one of the questions. We've thought about doing kind of an open platform, and at some point we will. But you know, it's such a highly curated process right now. You know, as I said, at some point we may get to a point where we can do this curation in a more automated way online. but for the time being, we're doing it in a more curated way with our team.
Good to know. And is there a list anywhere, a website where people can view the projects that are currently available?
Yeah, that's what I just answered, Sean. So we don't have a list of all the active projects online yet.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay.
There is another question from Vera. With the teams you have already put together, what has been a common point of friction?
That's a very, very good question. I think that I would say that the number one point of friction is this idea that the entrepreneurial champion, slash, if that person becomes a CEO, that it creates this sort of loss of control that academics feel. That, this is a project that they've worked on, for 5-10 years of their career. And now they're sort of handing it over to an entrepreneurial champion. And, what if that person is not able to raise money? Or, what if they want to take it in a different direction from the one I want to take it in? So I think it's really important for the two sides to get together. And that's this process we've created to see if they can get to a point of a common vision. So I would say that's kind of the number one area of friction. The number two area of friction is equity splits. And, there's all kinds of, views on how equity should be split between the academic founders and the entrepreneurial champion founders. And again, we've, collected and started collecting more data on what some best practices could be around those equity splits. Now, there are other, areas of friction, but those are the two big ones that come up often.
Thank you, Vineet. The next question is from Stephen. What does the matching process look like?
Yeah, so first, when we get the project, we have a pretty good idea of the entrepreneurial champions in our stable and, what kind of background experience, what their availability could be. And so we typically will find 2 or 3 that look like they could be a match. And we introduce them to the project. If they show some interest, we then create a connection or a collision between the academic side and those 2 or 3 entrepreneurial champions. And then, the idea is that we would get down to, a short, a list of 1 that the academic actually, feels comfortable with and shares a vision. And then they would enter into this kind of 4-step process to see if there's a common vision. And at the end of it, if that's going to work out, they would enter into a founder's understanding that would lay out the details of things like equity split and who does what, and and then launch the Spinout.
Thank you, Vineet. We have more questions coming up in the Q&A section and in chat. So I'm just going to read the next one. And it is, how do we find resources on equity split?
Yeah, we can share those with you. As I said, our website's not the best right now. So, slowly as we clean it up, we'll make these things available online. But right now, at this point, we're just emailing you those to you.
Thank you. And I can also see another question in the chat. What else can we do? What are the long-term goals with the program?
So the long-term goals with the program are really, really simple. Our focus is to increase the quality of the spinouts that are happening from our 34 institutions. First and foremost, by quality, I mean, get them ready for success by having the right, management team from the beginning, because the right management team attracts other resources. The second goal is to increase the quantity of academic spinouts from our institutions by getting the management teams right, because many of these academic spinouts sometimes don't get off the ground because the academic side doesn't want to let go control and has a hard time finding resources. The third goal is to attract academic spinouts from institutions all over the country. So, places in the country where they have great science, but not the kind of entrepreneurial champions and funding like we do here in Boston, and attract those technologies to Boston to grow the companies here.
Thank you, Vineet. I don't see any more questions in Q&A or chat, and we still have attendees on the line. Please hurry up with your questions.
Yeah, I think we have 1 minute. Well, it's been a pleasure, and I hope people got some value out of it. And I'm really glad to see that the Venture Cafe going online is attracting interest. That's fantastic. Stay healthy, everyone, during these trying times, and let's find ways to encourage each other and keep the economy of Massachusetts going.